Imagine traveling to a remote castle in the Italian countryside, expecting to shoot a series of horror book covers, only to discover that the owner is a sadistic madman obsessed with torture and death. Our story begins centuries ago, in the year 1648. Deep within the cold, stone dungeon of an ancient Italian fortress, a notorious nobleman known as the Crimson Executioner is finally brought to justice. This man was a complete sadist, a literal monster who spent his entire life building intricate torture devices to fulfill his darkest, most murderous fantasies. The local tribunal condemns him to death, deciding that his execution must match the severity of his crimes. The guards strap him tightly inside his very own invention, a massive, iron maiden lined with sharp metal spikes. As the heavy iron doors are slammed shut, the Crimson Executioner screams out a terrifying curse. He vows that his soul will never rest, and that he will eventually return from the grave to inflict indescribable torment on anyone who dares to step foot inside his domain. The doors seal his fate, and the dungeon is locked away, left to rot in absolute silence for hundreds of years. The scene shifts dramatically to the modern day of 1965. We introduce a colorful, highly confident group of creative professionals traveling through the Italian roads in a convoy of cars. The group is led by Daniel Parks, a greedy, fast-talking publisher of cheap horror pulp novels. Daniel is on a strict deadline to produce a brand new series of romance and horror paperbacks, and he wants the covers to feature real photographs instead of drawings. Traveling with him is Rick, a sharp, intelligent former journalist who now works as the head writer for the publishing company. Along for the ride is Dermot, an arrogant, demanding photographer, a quiet wardrobe and production assistant named Edith, and 5 beautiful young models named Susie, Kanojo, Nancy, Annie, and a couple of male crew members including a young man named Raoul. The group has been driving for hours, searching for the perfect, authentic Gothic location to use as a backdrop for their spooky photo shoot. After rejecting several boring locations, they finally pull up to the gates of the Crimson Executioner's ancient castle. The fortress looks completely magnificent, looming over the cliffs with dark, brooding stone walls. To the crew, it looks completely abandoned and perfect. They knock on the heavy iron gates and ring the service bell, but nobody answers. With the sun quickly setting and Daniel refusing to waste another day of production,
I signori possono accomodarsi. Bravo, Penny.
They walk inside the grand entrance hall, completely amazed by how clean, well-lit, and perfectly preserved the interior looks. Suddenly, their exploration is cut short when a massive, heavily muscled servant steps out of the shadows, blocking their path with an incredibly hostile expression. He demands to know why they have broken into private property. Daniel immediately tries to use his smooth, business-minded charm to de-escalate the situation, lying that they thought the castle was empty and offering to pay a handsome rental fee to the owner. The burly servant refuses to listen to their excuses and forces Daniel and Rick to walk down a long hallway into a private, lavishly decorated office to meet the true master of the estate. Sitting behind a massive desk is a man named Travis Anderson. Travis is not an old, fragile nobleman. He is a famous, former movie star and champion bodybuilder who suddenly vanished from Hollywood at the absolute peak of his career. Travis is a deeply unhinged individual. He explains to them that he bought this isolated castle to escape the filth, immorality, and corruption of the outside world. He has become completely obsessed with physical fitness and spiritual enlightenment, believing that any contact with normal, everyday humans will physically contaminate his flawless, perfect body. Travis is completely insulted by their intrusion and aggressively orders them to pack up their camera gear and get off his land immediately. However, just as Daniel and Rick are about to walk back to the group defeated, Travis glances through a hidden spy hole in his office wall, looking out at the rest of the crew in the lobby. His eyes lock onto Edith, and his entire demeanor instantly changes. He freezes in absolute shock. It turns out that before Travis fled into total isolation, Edith was actually his fiancée. She was the woman he loved deeply before his mind completely broke from his toxic narcissism. Seeing his former love standing in his castle triggers something dangerous inside his brain. Travis walks over to the castle's intercom speaker system and announces to the entire group that he has changed his mind. He grants them permission to stay at the villa for exactly one night to complete their photography project, but he delivers a chilling, strict warning. He tells them that his servants will guide them to the safe areas of the castle, but the deep, underground dungeons are strictly off-limits. They must never, under any circumstances, go down there. Naturally, because this is a horror story, the crew completely ignores Travis's warning. The photographer, Dermot, is obsessed with finding the most shocking and dramatic backgrounds possible for his pulp horror covers. The following day, the team transforms the ancient dungeon into a bizarre photography set. Camera flashes illuminate the darkness as the models pose among the medieval artifacts and stone walls. The atmosphere is equal parts glamorous and disturbing. Meanwhile, Annie and Raoul grow bored with the shoot and slip away from the others in search of privacy. Laughing and teasing each other, they wander deeper into the forgotten sections of the dungeon, eventually reaching a sealed chamber hidden behind layers of dust and cobwebs. Curious about what lies beyond, they begin exploring the room. As they move around in the darkness, Raoul accidentally bumps into an ancient ceremonial battle axe displayed on the wall. The heavy weapon falls with a tremendous crash. Its blade strikes the old metal seal covering a nearby doorway, shattering the centuries-old barrier that has remained untouched since 1648. Neither Annie nor Raoul realizes what they have done. The sealed chamber slowly creaks open. A cold wind rushes through the dungeon, extinguishing several torches nearby. Hidden within the darkness, an ancient evil that has been imprisoned for centuries is finally free once again. What they don't know is that Travis Anderson is secretly watching their every move through a network of hidden peepholes built into the eyes of the castle's portraits. Seeing the beautiful models draping themselves over the ancient tools of death, and witnessing Annie and Raoul engaging in lustful behavior, completely shatters Travis's fragile sanity. His extreme narcissism, combined with his hatred for human impurity, morphs into a full-blown psychotic break. He views their presence as an unholy sin that is actively defiling the sacred purity of his home. Travis runs to his private wardrobe room, strips off his clothes to reveal his oiled, muscular physique, and puts on a tight, bright red executioner's outfit, complete with a crimson hood. Travis completely sheds his identity as a former movie star. He fully adopts the persona of the reincarnated Crimson Executioner, believing it is his divine, moral duty to protect his castle by systematically torturing and executing every single sinner inside. The trap is set, and the horrific executions begin with chilling, calculated speed. Shortly after, the Crimson Executioner creeps up on Annie and Raoul in their romantic hideaway. Before they can even scream, Travis uses his immense strength to knock Raoul unconscious and drag a terrified Annie away into his specialized torture cells. Back at the main photoshoot, the group finally realizes that several of their members have gone missing. Daniel and Dermot assume they are simply wandering around the castle, but Rick begins to suspect something is terribly wrong. While searching the dungeon corridors, he notices fresh blood staining the ancient stone floor. Before he can fully process what he's seeing, a terrified scream echoes through the castle. The scream belongs to Kinojo. Curious and separated from the others, she has wandered into a hidden chamber unlike anything else in the castle. Before she can react, a concealed mechanism activates, trapping her inside a massive mechanical spider web that stretches across the room. Thick metal strands tighten around her body, leaving her completely helpless. At the center of the web sits a gigantic mechanical spider. Its metal legs slowly begin to move as it crawls toward her. The entire structure is also rigged with deadly tripwires and automated weapons, making any rescue attempt incredibly dangerous. Hearing her screams, Rick rushes into the chamber. He scales the stone walls and tries to carefully crawl underneath the deadly tripwires to cut her loose. But Kinojo is panicking. The more she struggles, the more violently the web shakes. The movement activates the spider. With horrifying speed, the mechanical creature lunges forward. Rick desperately reaches for her, but he's too late. The spider's venomous stinger strikes Kinojo before he can free her. Helpless, Rick watches as Kinojo succumbs to the poison, becoming the latest victim of the castle's ancient horrors. The castle becomes a total slaughterhouse as Travis and his brainwashed, tight-clothed henchmen launch a full-scale ambush on the remaining survivors. Daniel and Dermot try to fight back, but they are brutally and easily taken out by the executioner's blades. Rick tries to protect Edith, but he is struck from behind by a heavy iron club and knocked completely unconscious. When Rick finally opens his eyes, he realizes he is trapped in a literal living nightmare. He is stripped down and bound tightly with thick ropes to a heavy wooden table. Directly above his chest, a massive board line with dozens of long, sharp steel spikes is slowly descending from the ceiling. Death is moving toward him inch by inch, and he has less than 2 minutes before his chest is completely impaled. Rick frantically thrashes against his restraints, but the ropes are too thick. Just as hope seems entirely lost, he looks to his left and notices a dead body lying on a medical slab right next to him. Summoning every ounce of stretch in his muscles, Rick strains his fingers, reaching blindly into the pocket of the dead man's trousers. His fingertips catch onto something small and metallic. It is a pair of heavy-duty metal nail clippers. Using the tiny tool with absolute desperation, Rick works furiously against the thick fibers of the rope, cutting through the strands one by one. The spikes are literally brushing against his shirt when the final knot snaps. Rick rolls violently off the table, crashing onto the stone floor just a split second before the heavy steel spikes crush into the wooden slab. Free from the trap, Rick searches the blood-splattered hallways for his former fiancée. Travis has successfully captured Edith, viewing her as the ultimate source of his past emotional pain. He believes that by sacrificing her, he will completely cleanse his soul of any remaining human weakness. He has dragged her into the central torture chamber, tying her securely to a massive, upright wooden frame surrounded by burning hot coals and sharp instruments. Nick finally confronts Travis in the depths of the dungeon, where Edith is being prepared for a horrifying sacrifice. Knowing there is no way to reason with the madman, Nick immediately steps forward and demands that he release her. Travis responds with nothing but contempt, and a brutal final showdown begins. The towering executioner relies on his immense size and strength, using his powerful frame to overwhelm Nick during the early stages of the fight. Every blow carries tremendous force, and Nick quickly realizes that matching Travis' strength for strength is impossible. Instead, Nick relies on speed, determination, and quick thinking. He avoids several devastating attacks while searching for an opening. The two men battle throughout the chamber, knocking over equipment and crashing into the room's sinister torture devices as the fight grows increasingly desperate. For several tense moments, it seems as though Travis might actually win. But in his rage and overconfidence, he makes a fatal mistake. As the struggle carries them toward one side of the chamber, Travis loses his footing on the blood-slick stone floor and falls directly into his most sadistic creation, the Lover of Death. The life-sized metal device is covered in hundreds of razor-sharp poison barbs designed to slowly torture its victims. The spikes drive deep into Travis's body. The giant executioner gasps in shock as he realizes the terrible irony of his fate. The very invention he created to torment others has become the instrument of his own destruction. Moments later, Travis collapses, dead at last. With the nightmare finally over, Nick rushes to Edith and quickly cuts the ropes binding her to the torture rack. Together, Nick and Edith leave the dungeon behind, escaping the castle's horrors at last as the long nightmare finally comes to an end. What lengths would you go to in order to achieve absolute physical perfection? Would you let your own vanity turn you into a literal monster? Let me know your thoughts on this wild, campy gothic horror story in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive recap, please make sure to smash that like button right now. Thank you so much for watching, keep sticking to the schedule, and I will see you in the next recap.